about you.
Thank you all.
Well, welcome again to Texas. And I'm Richard, and I'm sitting here with my two sisters, Hazel and Lisa. Thank you for participating in this All Souls Gathering presentation by the Mystica Americana. And we hope everyone enjoys it. We're very grateful for everyone that participates. Lisa.
I'm Lisa, and I welcome you warmly. And together we have, behind the scenes, we have Charlie Bowles, who's masterminding our technology, assisted by Dawson, and we are also having Brother Michael assist us on the sound effects. And we would like to introduce Jeffrey and then Russell. So Jeffrey, would you introduce yourself, and then Russell, and Russell will hand it to Hazel.
Hello, everybody. I'm Jeffrey Levy. I'm in Louisville, Kentucky, and looking forward to sharing this evening with everyone.
And my name's Russell Blackstone. I'm joining everyone tonight from Sedona, Arizona. I'm a biodynamic gardener and farmer, and I have the extreme privilege to share thoughts on Substack for the Josephine Porter Institute. So we write about Rudolf Steiner and gardening and applying that to our own lives. I come out with bi-monthly newsletters on that, and I'm just really happy and thankful to you all for being a part of this tonight. So looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Very, very exciting to be together. I'm Hazel Archer-Ginsberg, and I'm coming in from Chicago, but this is the home of our lodge here. And I haven't seen these folks since the eclipse convergence, so I'm really happy to be back here in the heart of Texas. And, we really just want to join together, to share the warmth from the hearth fires of our lodge. And, we want this warmth to spread out, to bless all of the etheric spheres and ignite a circle of protection and light, a sacred vortex that unites our purpose, which is always about serving the highest good. So let this offering be for our past and present and future selves, as we acknowledge our beloved ancestors and the many angelic helpers, cultivating the reality that as we move through all worlds, we are always on holy ground. No matter where we are, right? We're safe, we're in sacred space, we're standing in uprightness together, even if it appears that we're sitting in our own skins, right? Sitting in our separate places. So yeah, we get that going. Thank you. And now we'll turn the screen share back on so we can see some of these beautiful images. And yeah, today is All Saints' Day. So this really got me thinking, what is a saint?
Well, the word comes from the Latin sanctus, which simply means holy. Throughout the New Testament, the term saint is used to refer to anyone who exhibits the Christ impulse through the virtues of faith, love, and hope.
Right. And that reminded me to pick up my well-used copy of The Golden Legend. I don't know if you all work with that. My girl, when she was in third grade, we read about the saints. It's originally entitled Legenda Sanctorum. This is readings of the saints. And it's just a wonderful compilation of its traditional lore of all the saints according to their feast days. And it's a theme that's real close to my heart, and I love to explore it along with the calendar of the soul.
And All Saints' Day is at the center of the 3-day festival dedicated to honoring and remembering the dead, beginning with All Hallows, followed by All Saints, and All Souls' Day tomorrow, November 2nd.
Yeah.
We choose to call tonight's festival offering All Souls, since we will be taking the journey which all souls embark on in the life between death and rebirth. Now, I would imagine the saints' journey would be interesting as well, but maybe some other day.
Yeah, I think a little bit different.
Do you want to pin?
But yeah, we have entered the time of the cross quarter. So maybe you need to mute that mic there. No? Okay. The cross-quarter time, right? So we're halfway between the autumnal equinox and the winter solstice. So this festival is called many names in different cultures.
A sacred time out of time when the veil of the world and the spiritual realm beckons.
Can you feel the exchange?
That's the first thing.
And so, my friends, the spirit of the season asks us to gather in the courage of Michaelmas to look beyond the mask of the material world into our deepest self.
Into the realm of soul and spirit.
Into the place of beginnings.
Into the time of unbornness.
And the place of endings when we shuffle off this mortal coil.
Only to begin again and yet again as we strive toward the eternal.
Remembering that every ending is a new beginning.
Life after death, life before birth. Only by knowing both do we know eternity.
At this liminal time, great transformations are possible.
The power of all worlds, past, present, and future, interpenetrate.
In anthroposophical terms, we can relate it to the foundation stone meditation and the directive to practice spirit recalling, spirit sensing, spirit beholding.
Past, present, and future.
Father, Son, Holy Spirit.
Maiden, Mother, Crone.
And when we practice spirit recalling, it prompts us to ask ourselves, what are my cosmic origins and where do I come from?
Leading us to the Godhead.
Practice spirit sensing tunes us into our quest for this life, where we can ponder, what am I here to do? Which finds resonance in the Christ will encircling us.
Practice spirit beholding aligns us with the eternal goals of the gods so that our focused free willing can show us the way to our highest destiny.
We are a bridge between what is past and future existence. The present is an instant. It's a momentary bridge. Spirit becomes soul, and enfolding matter is from the past. Soul becoming spirit in germinal vessels is on the path to the future. Grasp what is to come through what is past. Have hope of what is growing through what has emerged, and so comprehend existence in growing, and so comprehend what is growing in what is.
Yeah, wow, thank you so much to work with in this verse. And I can really feel myself as a bridge connecting spirit and soul.
Many of us have attended the gates of birth and death with awe and wonder.
When we are attentive, we can learn that those who have crossed the threshold, as well as those waiting to come across the rainbow bridge into a new incarnation, want to work with us.
Acknowledging their presence is a reminder that everything physical is an outer expression of spirit.
To communicate with the unborn, as well as with the so-called dead, we need to speak the language of the spirit.
This language is a language of verbs, everything related to activity and movement, not nouns.
Yeah, these human souls across the threshold live in the world of the stars, right? It's the astral world, which is one of openness and connection, a soul spiritual world, an image world of weaving, interconnected feeling.
In the realities that the great Rosicrucian initiate Rudolf Steiner brings us in his many teachings on communicating with our dearly departed and working with the spiritual hierarchies, we learn not only what the dead can teach us about the life between death and rebirth, but also what it means to be human in a spiritual sense.
We learn of the importance of working with the so-called dead and the angelic worlds for both our own and for their development, as well as for the future evolution of the earth.
It's no small task, a great human responsibility.
Like the world of dreams, the world in which we encounter the dead is not a world of things, but primarily a world of images. There, we are not outside, but inside what we perceive.
The souls of the dead need nourishment, just as we need food on earth. It's different. Our thoughts, filled with love and goodwill, become food for those who have died.
At the same time, through this process of conscious connection and through the activity of living, thinking, and living feeling, the dead can also communicate with us.
A suggested exercise that we can do is to tune in right before we fall asleep as we enter that elusive hypnagogic state.
Yeah, there, at the threshold, that in-between space, outside time and place.
Here, in that liminal space between waking and sleeping.
There, where consciousness meets the collective unconscious.
There, we connect with the so-called dead.
It is here where they can partake in our life of thinking and feeling.
It is here, at the threshold, as we enter the spiritual realms during sleep, that they can send influences to us.
Influences that can affect our doing when we are awake.
Holding the soul quality of gratitude, reverence. We can pose a question before we enter the spiritual realm, that astral realm that we share with them during sleep.
And in the morning, if we remain still and silent, this allows us to hold the threshold open without expectation.
It is then that insights and feelings may arise from our soul's depths.
From that cosmic web of thoughts that we share with the spiritual world, an inspiration may come forth.
But Rudolf Steiner reminds us,
We must adapt ourselves to hear from them what we ourselves think, since we receive their answers through our own soul forces.
I love those chimes. In other words, we may think it's our own idea, when actually it's inspired into us, whispered to us by a loved one on the other side.
have you ever had that experience?
Yes, since I was a child.
Same.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I often feel a kind of mystic communication, so I am working to become more conscious of this exchange.
Yeah, that's a good point. You know, it's really important to develop a discerning acumen around who is communicating with and through us so that we know who is speaking.
Right. Then in freedom, we can choose to heed the voice or not.
Yeah.
Rudolf Steiner gives us examples of this. In his autobiography, he tells how a woman inspired him from the spiritual world to write the first two mystery dramas.
And he also talks about two people who had passed through the gate of death who helped him create his main philosophical work, a little book called Intuitive Thinking as a Spiritual Path, a Philosophy of Freedom.
In his karmic relationship lectures and other places, Steiner speaks about this as a kind of incorporation.
We also learn about how disincarnate individualities, like Goethe, for instance, worked with Steiner from the spiritual world to bring the impulse of anthroposophy into the world.
We may also begin to notice how chance encounters and synchronicities may bring us insights as well, if we let go of preconceived ideas and expectations.
Oh, I love this quote from the Dalai Lama.
I am open to the guidance of synchronicity and do not let expectations hinder my path.
Exactly. We can't let what we think it's supposed to look like get in the way of recognizing the guidance, which often comes in with a different form than we're expecting.
And I'm sure we all have stories of these coincidences that can profoundly affect our lives, right?
Yeah, for sure. And also those times when I didn't heed that still small voice, right? Either because I had an expectation, a preconceived notion that blinded me to it, or because I let materialistic thinking get in the way.
And another powerful way to connect is through meditative reading of spiritual literature. It's a simple, effective way of reaching out and is a great comfort to those on the other side, especially when you invoke them as you read out loud.
I love to recite the prologue to the Gospel of John out loud as an offering to the dead.
Saying the Lord's Prayer always lifts the veil for me.
And I find speaking a mantra cultivates a fertile ground for the beloved dead, an invitation to add their voice.
Inviting only those aligned with love and light.
Yeah, that's important. And we're joining forces, and we're broadcasting the spirit-laden sound vibrations out through the matrix of the mantra. It sets forth healing waves to harmonize all the worlds.
Know the spiritual world. Then among the many other blessings that humanity will gain will be this, that the living and the dead will be able to form a unity.
And so it is, dear friends, that tonight, on this Scorpio new moon, All Saints' Day, we will explore the life between death and rebirth, the universal journey across the threshold that we've all taken many times before and will take again and yet again.
Well, you are also invited to dedicate this imagination to someone who has crossed the threshold, someone you want to connect with.
Or perhaps you will use this as a chance to do your own inner work around these themes.
We've set up 7 stations, 7 altars in our consecrated sacred space to enact this experientially, and you are invited to join us on this journey.
It's an activity to guide us in the understanding of what our soul may experience when we pass to the other side, dying on the physical plane only to be reborn in the spiritual world.
While we are here on earth, it is our task to build and act on spiritual ideas and concepts to gain the love and wisdom we need in order to have light on the other side. Otherwise, everything is dark.
From Rudolf Steiner, we hear,
For what is acquired here on earth as wisdom becomes light over there, spiritual light.
Wisdom is spiritual light in order that it may not be dark across the threshold. We need wisdom.
We leave our deeds of love behind in the world. They are then a spiritual factor in the how of world happening.
Spiritual knowledge is transmuted through its own nature into love.
The wisdom of the outer world becomes inner wisdom in humanity from the earth period onward. And when it is concentrated in the human being, it becomes the germ of love.
Wisdom is the necessary preliminary condition for love. Love is the fruit of wisdom, reborn in the eye.
Well, at this threshold portal, we'll face death. We'll look at death right in the face, knowing we have work to do in this transition. I need to see the screen.
Are you ready to move, dear seekers, to make this transition, to commence the journey through the 7 planetary spheres into the life between death and rebirth?
Soul to soul, the circle is vast.
Joining present, future, and past. Soul to soul, the circle is vast. Joining present, future, and past. Soul to soul, the circle is vast. Joining present, future, and past. Soul to soul, the circle is vast. Joining present, future, and past. Soul to soul, the circle is vast. Joining present, future, and past. Soul to soul, the circle is vast. Joining present, future, and past.
In past ages, the cone was sea, which corresponds to the Mars phase of the Earth. But now the Earth is in its Mercury phase.
Yeah, so go ahead. All right. Well, yes. All souls in home, at home, and in all worlds are invited to do the Eurythmy gesture for Hallelujah, while inwardly vibrating with the tone of D. After 3 days, the formative forces of our etheric body dissolves. Unless, of course, you're a saint and or a great initiate, but that is another story.
The 3-day visual is tantamount.
Yeah, it's really important to gather together in community to stay with the body. As it releases its vital forces into the etheric realms. Many cultural traditions practice this before burial or cremation. And we can really picture the space between Earth and the moon. So if we could have the screen share back on, we could show that a little bit. As we're just imagining this space between the Earth and the moon. Yeah. There we go. Yeah. And this is the realm in which the human being, released from the physical body, dwells during what in Hindu terminology is called Kamaloka.
Growing up, we called this limbo, or the state of purgatory, which had a negative connotation. It was considered a place of suffering and punishment inhabited by the souls of sinners.
Spiritual science describes it as a passing intermediate state after physical death, a time for purifying the soul.
Right. So the alchemical analogy gives us a picture that all the dross is being removed from the gold in the fiery furnace. There you go.
The process, as the process progresses, we can imagine our spirit expanding more and more up to the moon sphere.
And as we are expanding, we see a panorama of our life in backward review.
Now we can think of it as time becoming space.
In this state of Kamaloka, which is referred to as the region of burning desires, we meet our earthly longings.
Be able to possibly increase the preamp on their lapel mics.
What we've done to others.
Wait a minute, there's
from their point
there's no preamp.
Okay.
It's just a little.
That's not always comfortable for the soul. When it is described in its extremes, as a fierce burning or an intense coldness.
Steiner tells us this phase lasts about 1/3 of our lives, which is also the measure of time that we spend sleeping.
So fascinating. So during this phase, not only do we experience the joy and pain that we've caused others, we also review what we experienced in the spiritual world while we slept. So then we finally start to know what those dreams were about, right?
So, for instance, if a person lived to be 72 years old, that means that they will be in this purification phase for around 24 years.
I mean, it is really interesting, because this means that most of the people that we know that have died are still in this process. They're still in this phase.
Yeah, it makes sense. And that's why it's so important to tune in to our beloved dead during this time of purification, especially when they're in this region of burning desires.
Let's offer up a prayer from Steiner to help those we know who are in this phase in their life between death and rebirth.
May my love be for you in the spirit realm.
May my seeking soul find your soul.
May my thinking of your being ease your cold, ease your heat.
In this way we shall be united, I with you, you with me.
Thank you. Yes, there is much we can do to help those on the other side through this phase.
And as this purification process continues, we can imagine our souls unbound from the physical, continually expanding until we're as vast as the orbit of the moon.
When we reach the moon sphere, the first of the 7 stages of the afterlife, we are surrounded by the tone B in the musical scale.
All souls are invited to perform the Eurythmy gesture for the moon. You will notice that we will meet a eurythmic gesture in each planetary sphere. Steiner reveals that God eurythmatizes, and from that, our human form comes forth, and into which it emerges.
In the Western mystery tradition, we also say God geometrizes.
Such an evocative image.
In the moon sphere, we are greeted by the primeval teachers. Steiner calls them the registrars of our destiny.
These wise beings never came into physical incarnation. They followed the moon when it separated from the earth, making a fortress there, from which they inspired the great initiates who worked with them, incorporated into them their wisdom.
When we meet the primeval teachers in this first station in the afterlife, they help us unravel our karma.
When we have learned to release our passions and longings, then we expand on to higher levels.
But remember, we cannot be purified. Whatever can't be purified, we have to leave it behind. And this is true in each phase, each sphere. So we have to do that so that we can really expand on.
We will retrieve our baggage on our way back into incarnation, and this will become the focus of our work in the next life.
So beyond the moon, we continue to look back at the earth, unfolding what is already developed in our relationships.
It is during this experience that we bring about the impulse to act differently in our next incarnation. This is how we create the will for karmic compensation.
Rudolf Steiner describes the human being in this phase like a cloud woven out of a spirit.
When we reach the Mercury sphere, the second of the 7 stages of the afterlife, we're surrounded by the tone D in the musical scale.
All souls are invited to perform the Eurythmy gesture of Mercury.
And when we enter the Mercury sphere, Steiner declares,
a person who has developed qualities of compassion and clear thinking, qualities that are usually termed moral, lives gracefully into Mercury. They are lit up by spiritual beings.
Really useful to contemplate. And it makes me ask, what would it be like to strive while we're still alive on Earth to develop the gifts of Mercury?
I mean, that's a good point. How can we cultivate compassion as a practice in moral thinking now?
Yeah. It's important, again, to note that whatever we can't bring into the sphere, whatever we're not able to assimilate of these qualities in our earthly life, that part of our soul that's underdeveloped will have to remain behind so that we can move on.
we then expand our being up to the next sphere, Venus.
When we reach the Venus sphere, the third of the 7 stages of the afterlife, we are surrounded by the tone of F in the musical scale, and all souls are invited to perform the Eurythmy gesture for Venus.
The human being is strongly influenced by the kind of person they were in life.
In Venus, we contemplate our spiritual inclinations. Rudolf Steiner indicates that
People who have not been able to develop any religious feeling or spiritual experience are isolated, and they cannot attract the forces needed from the loving sphere of Venus, which means that in their next incarnation, they will have an astral body that in a certain respect is imperfect.
Here we see how karma informs and literally forms us.
It's a great reminder to develop tolerance, interest, and love now, while we can, in this life.
next, if we are able, the soul expands up to the sun.
When we reach the sun sphere,
We cross another threshold to enter a higher spiritual realm, referred to as Devachan, and we're surrounded by the tone A in the musical scale.
all souls are invited to perform the Eurythmy gesture for the sun.
Is a real turning point. If our soul has the proper forces, it moves from the lower to the higher planes. And in this phase between death and rebirth, we're turned inside out, as seen in the Leo gesture.
To become fully penetrated by the energies here, it is essential to be open to receive the more refined influences of the sun spirits, the second power piece.
Spirits of light, Kyriatides, Dynamis, Exousiae, bestowing grace upon souls.
Cool. Yeah. So besides intermingling with the second hierarchy, we can contemplate the countenance of Michael, that cosmopolitan sun being who stands as our current time spirit, who has a special relationship to the sun sphere.
Michael asks us to see ourselves as a universal human being beyond nationality.
The idea that the sun shines on everyone equally.
And above all, it is essential to know the ruling sun spirit, the cosmic son of God, the Christos. And if we've explored the mystery of death and resurrection while living on earth, we are able to receive very high vibrations in this important phase of the afterlife.
Moving on to Mars.
When we reach the Mars sphere, we're surrounded by the tone C in the musical scale.
All souls are invited to perform with us the Eurythmy gestures for Mars.
Here, Steiner describes that we're no longer separate. We are deeply interpenetrated with spiritual beings in what is defined as cosmic speech.
We become part of a cosmic conversation. We are one, word to word.
It is hard to describe the qualities of the higher spheres beyond the sun.
On Earth, we may think of Mars as having a warlike aggressiveness. Yet in the spiritual world, Steiner tells us it's different. He describes how in the 17th century, the Buddha accomplished a kind of sacrifice for Mars. It's his mission now to exercise a pacifying effect there, an influence that brings the order to and powers of peace and equanimity, which we've been working with all week, and empathy, so it can stream into the strength prevailing in the Mars beings to gradually initiate a process of ascending evolution for the planet Mars.
Can we imagine cultivating the positive qualities of Mars, the active initiative and enthusiasm, the will to serve, the power of the protective warrior, guarding peace and progress?
So much to contemplate in Mars.
The soul then proceeds further and lives into Jupiter, the sphere of cosmic wisdom.
When we reach the Jupiter sphere, we're surrounded by the tone E in the musical scale.
All souls are invited to perform the Eurythmy gesture for Jupiter.
Up until now, we still had a bit of a connection with the earth. The soul could still receive prayers and impulses, but when we reach Jupiter, we are no longer experiencing this.
The sun still has a limited influence on us.
But here in Jupiter, we see how the entire universe works in us through the harmony of the spheres.
Dr. Steiner gives a great picture. He relates that the transformational shift that we experience from the passage of the sun through Mars to Jupiter can be compared like orchestra music changing into choral music. So this sphere of cosmic wisdom, we receive insights from the divine Sophia, a preview of the Holy Spirit.
Saturn is a sphere of cosmic memory or cosmic order.
When we reach the Saturn sphere,
She's changing.
we're surrounded by G in the musical scale.
All souls are invited to perform the Eurythmy gesture for Saturn.
It's in this next phase where we can transmute the forces acquired through spiritual science on Earth into forces that create our next physical, etheric, and astral constitution, so that in our coming life, we have a natural inclination toward the spiritual, or not.
What is it like to experience ourselves as co-creators with the creators? Beginning to plan and assemble the attributes for our various sheaths that will serve us in our next incarnation.
Through Eurythmy, I began to get a feeling for this.
I agree. It's like tapping into that cosmic memory, that cosmic order, which pours in from the zodiac, which Saturn, it really holds and represents.
Need to move to a different camera.
Beyond Saturn, a kind of spiritual sleep sets in.
So we're going to move now into the zodiac sphere and to this camera, perhaps, if that's possible. What do you think? Yeah, beautiful. So,
People say rest in peace when folks die.
yeah.
But as we are seeing, there is much work to do in the life between death and rebirth.
And yet here, in this next threshold phase, after working through the 7 planets, before we expand out to the zodiac, we do rest.
It makes sense that we would need to assimilate what we've gone through.
And spiritual science gives us a picture that forces in the constellations, made up of the 12 hierarchies of angelic beings, are extremely refined.
So from a spiritual point of view, from now on, the heightened consciousness that we've employed in working with the planetary beings is dimmed, which makes it possible to undergo still more higher experiences of transformation.
In the zodiac, we are interpenetrated by all the star colonies of spiritual beings in cosmic space, that we may learn to know them and ourselves as human beings in truth.
At this point in the journey, after having been inscribed in each of the 7 planetary spheres, we arrive at what is called Upper Devachan.
We move from the 7 to the 12, to the constellations of the zodiac.
Here, our experience of being interpenetrated with other human souls as a karmic group expands to include all the beings of the zodiac.
Now, that's quite a picture. And it's really starting to make sense, after all this time. If we really want to understand karma, we have to renew our wisdom of the stars.
Yes. So now all souls are invited to mirror the zodiac gestures as we move through the constellations. We shall begin with Aries. Taurus. Gemini. Cancer. Leo. Virgo. Libra. Scorpio. Sagittarius. Capricorn. Aquarius. Pisces.
May love of hearts reach out to love of souls. May warmth of love ray out to spirit light. Even so would we draw near to you.
Thinking of you with thoughts of spirit,
Feeling in you the love of worlds.
consciously at one with you.
Willing in silent being.
So while we're symbolically here together in Upper Devakan, which really can't be accurately portrayed other than through Eurythmy, before the striking of the cosmic midnight hour calls us to make the reverse journey back into incarnation, let's check in with each other. So we're gonna move back into the other room, and we're gonna open up a gallery view here and have a conversation. Let's let this be our circle of remembrance.
So anyone who wants to speak out a name of someone that they know who's crossed the threshold, that we can honor these beloved dead.
Is there someone in particular that you've been thinking of tonight?
Let's turn off the screen. Let's turn off the screen share and so we can see everybody. Yeah, great. Do you feel called to maybe, speak their name out into the circle? Or maybe you want to inscribe their name in the chat. And maybe Dawson, you can help us work with the chat a little bit. But please feel free to unmute yourself and speak a name. Perhaps there's some dearly departed one who's come knocking at the door of your heart tonight. right? Someone who needs your attention, or there's a message that they want to give to you.
Mm-hmm. Is there anyone you can also raise your hand if you'd like to speak? Godfrey, sorry.
Chris Pavers and Brenda Oakley. My mother and mother-in-law.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Who else?
Oh, actually, my father, Michael Cavers, too.
Amy, do you want to say something? Go ahead.
Do you want to unspell her?
My grandmother, Rosemary Morath.
She's talking.
Beautiful.
Beautiful.
My, also my grandfather, John Morath. And my other grandparents, Billy Palmer and Dale Palmer. They are remembered.
Thank you. Beautiful. They're welcome here. Jeffrey, go ahead.
And my dear first wife, Linda Carlson, and most recently, a dear friend, Sam Mowry.
I'd like to mention my friend Joseph Garcia. He just passed away a few months ago. He was a very close friend of mine.
It's true. You know, sometimes we can use this space to also, you know, it's not always easy when we're working with people. Sometimes we want to have a safe space to, you know, give or ask for forgiveness. Or maybe you're, you know, carrying some sort of unresolved feelings about the death of somebody, you know, where you had a hard relationship with them.
Is there something you want to tell them?
Yeah, or is there something they need to hear from you, or you imagine you need to hear from them? I think I saw Russell's hand earlier.
Yeah, I'd just like to invite into this space my friends and fellow mentors, Cleve Ollie and Kayla Mueller. Thinking about them a lot today.
Thank you. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah. You know, this also, we can open up this realm because it's so vast. And we can also think about those that are wanting to come into incarnation, right? So maybe there's some people out there that are looking to conceive. So maybe there's a message that you can give to the one that you want to come down the rainbow bridge.
What would it be like to envision and call in our future children?
Yeah, our future children.
Yeah, I mean, we can welcome the next generation waiting at the rainbow bridge to come into incarnation.
Maybe there's a message that you want to give yourself, maybe your past self. You want to maybe forgive them a little bit or cheer them on, right? Or your future self. Maybe you want to cheer your future. You got this, baby. Don't worry. You know, that happens to me all the time. I do that all the time. Like when I'm feeling like I don't have it, I'm like, okay, my future self has got it together. Come and help me, you know, in this moment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, perhaps our working tonight has made an impression which you want to make conscious for your upcoming journey.
Because we will all make this journey again. And if we think about it and we meditate and we work with it, especially with the Eurythmy, it really, I think it's going to make a difference when we pass.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anybody else have any other things they want to share?
Godfrey?
So I'm listening to Rudolf Steiner audio.com, is it called? and it's really interesting to hear, an outline of esoteric science, and before that, theosophy as I work on the land. I've read it many times, several times before, but it's so good to read it again, listen to it again, and again. As I develop as a human being, I hear different things. Those basic books are just so good. I don't think they're basic, actually.
Thank you. Yeah, repetition is always good. Rhythm and repetition. Yeah, I think it really, it etches that idea of being inscribed, right? We have to participate in that. So that's beautiful. Thank you. Yeah. All right, so let's have the screen share back on. Maybe we'll continue our journey. I'm just gonna, there we go.
Now let us imagine the experience of the cosmic midnight hour.
The cosmic midnight hour. It's another mighty threshold. And at this juncture, it's another turning point.
The expansion has reached the ring past naught. The soul, stretched to its limit, cannot go any further. There is a turning, a recoil, a contraction, a return.
Death becomes life. Night becomes day. Yin becomes yang. The tone shifts. We can imagine, I don't know, I always kind of picture it like a kind of trumpet sounds, which signals us to begin our journey back to rebirth. We pass once again through the planetary spheres, but in reverse order, starting with Saturn. So we're gonna take that journey, and we're gonna move back into the other room for that.
And since we're going back to Earth, we don't inscribe ourselves in each station. We symbolically pick up what we left behind in each sphere.
Yes, dear friends, we must pick up all that baggage that we left behind, all the karma we were not able to purify.
We must pick it back up, along with the imprint of each planetary seal, carrying it back into our next life.
And yet, these soul parts, they remain written in the stars, inscribed in that Akashic record that we hear so much about, right? Which is always working out from the spiritual world into Earth, into our lives, to help us shape our destiny.
This is how our karma is prepared.
When we read our astrological chart,
We're going to go this way.
the positions on the planets relative to the fixed stars give us some indication of our karma.
I love this imagination that the gods are doing Eurythmy in us, right? The visible speech of the gods are shaping the music of the spheres into our bodies.
Yes.
So when we practice this amazing new art form of movement, we are connecting back to these primal gestures. We carry within us the whole universe.
And what could give us greater strength in life than the knowledge that we bear within us the forces pouring in from all the work that we did with the great spiritual beings in our life between death and rebirth.
And so it is that we can prepare ourselves now in life so these forces can become active within us in a more conscious way for our next incarnation.
Yeah, now is the time, now, to meditate with our link with the other side, that realm that we slip into when we sleep, when we dream, when we dance with ecstasy, when we loosen our bonds of our logical minds to hopefully negotiate a smart treaty with our shadow side.
To ask questions like, who have I been? Who am I now? Where am I going?
Who do I want to become?
What would it be like to take up a true contemplation of these questions, to bring these questions to our future selves?
Steiner calls it
a holy mission laid upon humanity of the present, which must inform the future, to work with the divine spiritual beings who guide the world and with the so-called dead.
every ending is a new beginning.
Every ending is a new beginning.
Every ending is a new beginning.
And what is remembered lives.
Soul to soul, the circle is vast. Joining present, future, and past. Soul to soul, the circle is vast. Joining present, future, and past. Soul to soul, the circle is vast. Joining present, future, and past. Soul to soul, the circle is vast. Joining present, future, and past. It's so powerful to be together here in person.
Yeah, it really is. To join together in community, it is. It's such a blessing.
And thank you all out there, the etheric streams, and for joining us here in the heart of Texas.
The home base of the American Mizraim.
Our humble Grand Lodge of the United States of America.
You know, the MA, right? So I don't know. I don't know about you guys, but I call it the Ma Lodge. Maybe that's the new nickname, the Ma Lodge. But it's Mysteria, Mystica, Americana. And there's a whole history to that, which we could talk about at another time. And how do you even describe it in a sentence? I mean, basically, it's an initiatory school, right? It's work that we have to do. And it's transmitting this new Rosicrucian mystery of spiritual science.
We strive to become worthy collaborators of our highest cosmic evolution.
That we may serve in the temple, in the community, in the world, and in all ways in relationship with each other and with the spiritual world.
And we send our thanks and praise to all those who helped, to all those who joined us, and out into all worlds,
To the hierarchies,
the planetary beings, Mother Earth,
Our future children.
and on this All Saints' Day, our beloved dead.
may God bless you all.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night, and thank you.
You can unmute yourselves and say hello.
Hello. Yes.
Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you so much, all. That's beautiful.
You're out.
Hi, for Mysteria, Mystica, are they part of the Steiner group?
Maybe you can go in there. Yeah, well, let Richard speak to that. All right, here we go.
Okay. Can you,
Ask your question again, Martha.
Martha, yeah.
Thank you. This is very interesting. I'm new to all of this, but I had a dream this morning and I saw you all in the dream. And before COVID, I really wanted a farm. I still do, but the passion for it, I've kind of had to let go of it for right now. But all of it kind of like was in my dream this morning, but I saw you three. And so when I got an email from Joseph Porter Institute about this webinar tonight,
Russell!
I just felt that I needed to be a part of this. So are you a part of this? I mean, I'm sorry, I know everyone else is already familiar with you, but are you part of the Steiner group? Or I'm in Virginia, actually. So I don't, like I said, all of this is brand new. It's just kind of, I was directed here tonight.
Okay, when you're asking if we're part of the Steiner group, do you mean the MA, the Mystica Americana?
Uh-huh.
All right, so the Mystica Americana transmits the ritual initiations of Rudolf Steiner that he transmitted, that he wrote himself, and he worked in the lodge called the Mystica Eterna in the early 1900s up till about the time of 1912. And what it is, it's very similar to Masonic initiations, where you are initiated into a ritual that Steiner wrote, which reflects your spiritual journey. So each part of the initiation is a mirror in the physical world of the path that we travel towards initiation in the spiritual world. So the MA is not associated with the Anthroposophical Society, although we are in agreement with them. It's a completely separate entity, and the rites were kept alive in Europe, particularly Sweden, some other countries, and they gave a charter to open the North American Lodge here in Texas around 2 years ago, and transmitted the rituals and things to us so that we could become operative over here. So we adhere to and follow all of the traditions of Steiner. It's just with us at the MA, there's also an added element, which is the ritual work. So that's really what, and there's 9 degrees. So you're initiated in first degree, and it goes all the way up through the 9 degrees. And each one of those is a stage representing your inner advancement.
But it is like an initiative, like Russell's working with biodynamics, which is an initiative from Rudolf Steiner. So we consider ourselves to be the cognitive ritual section of that initiative from Rudolf Steiner.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, good question.
Anybody else have a question?
So, can we join the thing?
Yes. If you go to AmericanMizraim.com, there's an email. Just introduce yourself through that email as a contact, say that you're interested, and you will be sent some information on how to proceed further.
Thank you.
Yeah, everyone's welcome.
Maybe somebody could put that.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you all so much. Like, I think it's really interesting, you know, like there were so many teachings given to us 100, 120 years ago from Rudolf Steiner. And it's like sorting through those is sometimes a process, you know, at least for me, like finding biodynamics provided some rhythm to that, right? There's guidance given. And I think a lot of the Mizraim work is similar to that too. Like, what can we do to develop ourselves now? And kind of change our habits, change our attachments in order to what we were talking about tonight, in order to, you know, in the next world and our future lives, hopefully have a little less baggage holding us down. Like I had it kind of described the other day that it's almost like going through like a filter or it's an imprint, and it is those material things that are holding us back into our next life. So at least for me, like my gift or my contribution right now, you know, writing about that rhythm. How can we find daily rhythm through Rudolf Steiner's teachings? But I think that really quickly leads us into the yearly rhythms, you know, and what a blessing it is to be here tonight, celebrating All Souls and All Saints. And, you know, just kind of thinking like what a really important time of the year it is right now. Is, you know, it's like some of the coldest days so far for us here in Arizona, and the leaves are dropping and changing. And I almost feel my own body like contracting as well in that. And, you know, just to really sit with that. And, you know, for me, really finding that center inside that meditation, inside myself, and being able to connect, you know, outwardly too. So I think there's a lot of crazy things happening right now in our world. And, you know, this small community is beautiful. And there's, yeah, we'll see. But yeah, I look forward to continuing the celebrations. And, you know, I think it's interesting. Like we had Michaelmas about a month ago, and now we're celebrating together today. And then looking forward, and maybe Hazel wants to talk about that or something about just where we're going towards and how important it is leading up to the first Advent Sunday. And then as we're working towards the holy nights as well and into the new year and all of that towards resurrection, I suppose. But yeah, thank you all so much. And I sending my love and my light to you all.
Yeah, I was just saying, that I appreciate what you brought, Russell, because
To me, like that, being able to really bring in
those elements of the cyclical energies where each one has an impulse that we can bring into our own inner development, and we can share that in community. And it's not always easy to be in community. We have to bump up against each other. There's always things to do. There's a lot of work, and that's where the real work is. We can all sit in our rooms and meditate, and that's all great, and we should do that. But then when we come out in the world, when we go out to be in nature, and when we come together in groups, that's where we really have to practice it. And I find this work to be really valuable for me in that way. And getting into this cycle of the year, it is a path of initiation. If we really just tune in to the energies that are given to us, it brings in so much that we can, supplement our lives with. So we will continue to bring offerings here and see how they develop. So
in our fantasy world, we would love for us to have in-person gatherings and hybrid gatherings on the equinoxes and on the
Maybe solstices.
The solstices and the equinoxes, and it would be a rhythm where we could come together, maybe in different parts of the country if we had, as we grow. And we're very excited about inviting new people in who are really interested in committing to this esoteric initiative path.
But come on down to Texas. It's hot here, though, I'll tell you that. Woo, it's hot.
What you said earlier, though, about the life initiation, life itself is the true initiation. Yeah. The experiences that we go through, sometimes we recognize them spiritually, sometimes we don't. Sometimes they're rather ambiguous. What the MA does and what the rituals do is provide context for a lot of that, because I know, speaking personally in my life, there were a lot of situations that I had inherently felt were important, but I could not articulate them to myself in my own mind to understand why they were important. It was an intuitive feeling. When I was exposed to the rituals and everything was put in its proper order, I had these eureka moments where I recognized parts of my life experience in these rituals, and it put it in context where I was like, that's what that was. That's what that means. And it gave me an anchor, not only to know that there was purpose and meaning behind what was happening, but also to know where I've come from, where I'm at right now, and to be able to follow the trajectory forward into where I'm going. So with me, the rituals framed that in a way that gave me a more solid comprehension and even interacting with the situations in my life coming from that spiritual understanding.
Beautiful. Yeah. It has to be practical. It has to be. It's not theoretical, it's not abstract, it's not in the head, it's head, hands, and heart, always. Art, science, spirituality. That's the Rosicrucian way. That's spiritual science.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Other thoughts?
Amen.
Martha?
I have another question. Tonight you were, speaking of the dead visiting or, communicating with the dead. I try not to communicate with anybody other than I pray a lot. I'm a prayer person. I'm a believer. And throughout the years, I have always felt that other people's, I refer to them as guardian angels, have consistently and on a regular basis communicated with me. And not necessarily that I wanted that communication, but after I was like alerted to things or told things, and I felt like I had a responsibility and I would share it. So, I mean, that's established. It's something that I'm familiar with. But why is it that I am always being, and again, I have always felt that they are angels. There have been some negative entities, but I can discern the difference. But I have always felt that they're guardian angels or they're loved ones or something like that. But why are they always reaching out to me to help others? And when I say it's very often, it is a lot.
You know, it's like some people have an old flip phone, and other people have a super, super contemporary phone that has real powerful antenna. Over your years and through your act of prayer, you have built spiritual organs that allow you to perceive them. And so this is a gift. This is a response to your active commitment to praying. When you pray, those beings are hearing you. And as you pray, you build these spiritual organs to begin to hear them, see them, feel them. Whatever way you are sensing them is your way. But you have created this. You've planted and fertilized the ground to be receptive to spiritual information and messages.
And they very much want to communicate with us, and most people aren't listening. So anybody who is listening, they're gonna keep knocking on that door. So don't stop, and yeah, when the human being goes into the spiritual world, they're still human, but they're a spiritual being then. So you could think of them as they're a guardian angel. I mean, it doesn't really matter what the label is. And I think it is about the discernment and how do we, know who it is that's speaking and what it is that they need.
Yeah, you wouldn't open your door to any stranger that knocks. It's important to know who you're letting in as well.
Mm-hmm. But what I'm saying, it's like, a lot of times it's before it happens. Like today, like I said, I had this dream this morning. And the dream was very complex. And some of the slides that you showed, I mean, there were little tidbits, my dream beforehand. But so even before, like I'll go someplace, I'll have one of those experiences or encounters or something like that. And it's always good. It's always to help people. But I feel like that's a full-time job.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that. And I don't feel like I'm necessarily being helped ever.
Well,
I'm sure I am.
Yeah. I mean, the past, present, and future is not just one timeline. So you're getting little glimpses into these things. And you know what? You can ask for what you need to. When, that we talked about that tonight, that time right before you go to sleep at night, you can ask a question, or you could throw out something that is like, hey, I would like a little guidance here. I would like a little support in this endeavor. And, again, aligned with the beings of love and light, you can bring them in. And then once you let the question come forth, you let it go. And then in the morning, you just try to be quiet a little bit and listen. And obviously you have a gift for receiving these images, and I'm sure something will come. Try it for 3 nights and see what happens.
Well, that's when I ask for myself, I always do. And it could be maybe for me, something is trying to tell me to move in that direction. But yeah, when I pray for my needs, it's always about helping others, or even sometimes like to go someplace and to pray for someone that's sick. And these are total strangers a lot of times. So again, that's why I've always felt that it's their guardian angel, because it's always like something supernatural and something that ends up being a blessing for somebody. But yeah, but they're always contacting me, which is
Well, you know, Martha,
And-
one way to look at it is that your personal guardian angel has an archangel who's sort of their contact. And the archangel is in charge of other people connecting angels together so that they can bring people, like the archangel helps bring people together by working through everybody's individual guardian angels. So it's kind of like your personal guardian angel gets a message and sends it to an archangel who then connects with other guardian angels and they team up to bring you together.
It's all connected.
Yeah.
And we're the conduits. We're the conduits between above and below, right? We are the bridge. Yeah.
I had a friend who was a little overwhelmed by how much information she started receiving for other people because she was very devoutly in prayer. And she felt that messages were coming to her to say things to people that she had no context for, and she had no knowledge of whether or not these people needed to hear them. But her experience had been when she took the chance of saying, I'm just getting this message and you don't have to take it seriously or whatever, but I have received a message to give you. Would you like to hear it? And giving that person the opportunity. And every time she's asked and offered, the people have said yes. And she spoke what she was hearing to give them. And every time they were astonished at how much they needed to hear it.
But you have to leave people in freedom. I mean, can you imagine what Rudolf Steiner, how he probably saw so much in everybody? You can't say everything to everybody because people sometimes aren't ready to hear it. I think, somebody has to ask you something before you can tell them something. That's
It is because
Yeah.
there's kind of a spiritual rule. I mean, Steiner was once asked by someone why he let certain people in that turned out to be no good for the Anthroposophical Society because they assumed, and rightly so, that he could have used his clairvoyance to discern their character by their astral energies and things, inner thoughts and whatnot. And he said that it's not proper to do so. You must always let people act from their free will. And you cannot pry into their inner spiritual life without their permission. It would be like opening someone else's letter or someone else's mail and reading it.
Yeah.
So even if you have precognitive awareness about certain people or situations, many times, rightly, like you were saying, you have to act as if you didn't know that. Guard yourself. Don't let it harm you, but don't interfere with this other person's karma either. Allow that to work out and just be there to be of assistance and help where you can. And if they ask, then you have permission to view their inner self. But the Rosicrucian adepts and initiates that I'm familiar with in history that had that ability have always said that it's improper to look into someone's spiritual status without their permission.
Yeah. That's a very good point. Yeah. It's all about love in freedom. Freedom and love. Yeah.
Well,
I think we need to take a break here. It's been a long week over here in Texas. And we're just really grateful to be able to bring these offerings to you. And we'll see you. We'll see you during Advent, I guess. Peace.
bye, everybody. Thank you.
Yes.